There were just too many underrated, underappreciated, and forgotten movies from the 80s for one video. So we're doing it again. Most underrated movies of the 80s, Part 2. I'm Dan, this is Margie, and we're the Gen-Xers.
We are the Gen-Xers. Please hit like and subscribe. And I'm going to start out with my number 3, which was Real Genius.
Was it about me?
Surprisingly, no.
When the military runs short on brains, they go hunting at Pacific Tech, an exclusive institution for outstanding intellects.
This was a little throwaway gem from 1985. It was directed by Martha Coolidge, and it was really a movie for science nerds, for STEM nerds. She talks about how they did their homework.
Did you make this stuff?
I'm not saying.
Well, who's gonna clean it up?
You don't have to. It's gonna go from solid form directly to gas.
Whoa.
Basically, the story is about this kid who is a STEM prodigy. He's very young. He's skipped a couple grades, and he's been admitted to this Caltech type school. And he goes in, he's very like 16, 17 probably, and nobody cares. Nobody cares that he's a kid prodigy there, or they want to knock him off of his throne.
Sure.
So he feels really homesick. He feels like he doesn't have any friends, but then he finds out that he has this roommate, played by Val Kilmer, just about the only headliner in this movie, who used to be the kid prodigy himself at this school. So he knows all about, he knows what this is all about. And they become friends. And this movie, at the heart of it, is a friend movie, a friendship movie. But basically, they're on this project together, this, project with their Caltech type school that they find out is going to be used for nefarious military purposes. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't critically acclaimed. The studio said it underperformed. I think, worldwide, I think it grossed only like 50 million, and that only after some time had passed. But it was fun. It was a really fun movie, and they do their research in this movie. There's a lot of the stunts that they pull in the movie as they're trying to battle back and forth with the villain, Professor Jerry Hathaway. Played by William Atherton, which is he's a great 80s character actor.
Well, even that name sounds like an 80s villain.
Maybe
Atherton.
He plays a really good 80s villain when he plays one. But when they go into the stunts that they pull, these Wile E. Coyote type stunts in order to try to stop this professor from taking their idea and using it for evil, they actually based a lot of the stunts on actual stunts pulled by students at Caltech,
Really?
at MIT, and at Cambridge. So they had I think they had a lot of fun with this movie. You can tell that the actors definitely had fun with this movie, and me and my sister watched this on repeat.
I remember renting it, liking it, thinking it was a cut above many of the teen comedies at the time, right? From a movie about nerds to a movie for nerds, my number 3 is by one of my favorite directors of all time, Don Coscarelli of Phantasm fame, Phantasm 2 fame, Phantasm 3 and 4 fame. Also Bubba Hotep and this. So, yeah, he's got a pretty extensive catalog out there of great movies. Mm-hmm. And I found this, like almost everyone did, because it didn't do so great at the box office. It cost about $14 million to make, I think, and made about $9 million. But everybody that I know caught it on HBO. They played it so often in those early cable days that Dennis Miller said that HBO stands for Hey, Beastmaster's on, which sounds about right.
So Beastmaster.
It is Beastmaster.
And so, into an age of darkness, in a time of mysticism, sacrifice, and plunder, there came the only light, the Beastmaster.
I just loved it for many reasons. For one, there weren't a lot of good movies for nerds back then. Nowadays, it seems like every movie is for geeks. It's a Marvel Universe, DC, Star Wars, it's got whatever. Yeah. Back then, they're few and far between. They made serious movies for serious people, or they made those movies for teens to watch at the drive-in while they made out. Little fat nerds like me, not so many. Beastmaster was one. Scantily clad men and women, everywhere you could look. Mark Singer, Tanya Roberts, who you probably know from the final season of Charlie's Angels.
Yes.
And also was Donna's hot mom on that 70s show. And the late, great John Amos from Good Times, Roots, and a underappreciated musical career. Just listen to this.
Here's something that you might not know. Willie Nelson follows the hippie code. He's a hippie.
There's not a whole lot to say about the plot. It's the typical fantasy thing, starting from Noah to Willow. There's prophecy, a baby's born, it's going to kill the bad guy if it grows up. So it just goes from there. This guy, he can control animals. He's got a ferret. He's got a panther, which was really a tiger painted black, I found out later.
Oh, my.
And an eagle. It also, the villain is Rip Torn, who you probably know from Freddy Got Fingered.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages?
Anyway, the acting's probably not the greatest, maybe. I think that was one of the knocks on it. Maybe the plot's a little thin. And maybe sometimes the city doesn't look full-sized.
But minor things.
I still love it. If I catch it on, I still watch it. It's a lot of fun for me. You ever seen it?
I have.
What'd you think?
I mean, agree with your assessment of the qualities of the cinematography of this project, but as a fun watch, yeah, it was fun. Absolutely. Sure. Dan, my number 2 is Silver Bullet. Now, what in the Gary Busey is so good about Silver Bullet, Dan?
I don't know.
Gary Busey.
Time out.
Oh, of course.
As everyone's favorite cool uncle, second only to Uncle Buck. This is the uncle who would trick out your wheelchair with some horsepower. This was the uncle who would sneak you some M80 fireworks when your town's 4th of July celebration was shut down because there's a tiny little werewolf problem there. That's the uncle that I'm talking about.
He's the uncle who'll get drunk at Thanksgiving and talk about how things were different back in his day.
Right.
To ensure measured energy on using time.
Right. This is back when he was cool, though.
Speaking of that wheelchair, if I can interrupt for just a second.
Yeah.
I saw a souped-up wheelchair, and there was a dude in it, and he went across the road at about 90 miles an hour. It was amazing. Had like a lawnmower motor, I don't know what it had on, some kind of big motor on the back. It was the coolest thing I ever saw.
Yeah. Did he have it tricked out on the sides like this guy does in Silver Bullet?
He had a couple werewolf tails tied to it.
Did he? Mm-hmm. Well, okay then. He's been doing his work. This was another movie from 1985. It was based on the novella, Dan, which is neither a short story nor a story.
Sure.
By Stephen King called Cycle of the Werewolf. It starred Corey Haim.
That's right.
In the 80s when he and all the Coreys were at their peak.
Look, the Coreys are Gen X saints, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to put them on a candle.
That's right. Corey Haim starred, of course, Gary Busey. And this one was a modest hit. It didn't make a whole lot of money, maybe a couple mil above what they paid for it.
Sure.
But it wasn't critically received very well.
Silver Bullet is laughably bad.
Siskel hated it.
1, the story is not credible. 2, the characters are laughable. 3, the child's ailment is exploited. 4, people escape dangerous situations simply through an edit to them being safe. 5, the identity of the werewolf is tipped in the first 5 minutes. If you can't figure out who the werewolf is, you never should go into a movie theater. 6, there is needless and hilarious narration by the young girl there as an adult, played like she's 60 years old and only it's 9 years later.
And Ebert liked it based on the fact that he thought it was a parody of Stephen King.
Astonish you. I'm giving this movie thumbs up as a comedy.
That kind of hits to why it was so underappreciated. Because the heart of this story, too, is this relationship between this kid, played by Corey Haim, and his sister, Jane. And they have kind of a contentious relationship. They're siblings, first of all, and siblings always have a somewhat contentious relationship. He has a disability and he uses a wheelchair, and his sister is expected to take care of him a lot of the times, and she kind of resents this. But she tells the story of their relationship, and she narrates it against the backdrop of this summer when there happened to be a werewolf in their town. And it comes across as a really good campfire story. You're sitting around, you know, a little creepy, little bit about the relationship, about the family. So that's pretty heartwarming. A little bit of a thriller.
It's better than the Langoliers.
But it wasn't received well because at this time, this was 1985, right? At this time, Stephen King, who wrote the novella this was based upon, had already come out with, in movie form, Carrie, The Shining, The Boogeyman, Creepshow, Cujo, The Dead Zone, Christine, Children of the Corn, and Firestarter. So there was a little bit of a glut of Stephen King movies, and they were just kind of churning them out. So was the production level the greatest? Probably not. But I stand behind the movie. I think the movie was good. I think the story was good. And I think the acting was good. Good job, Corey. Good job, Gary. Good job, who was his sister? Miss Megan Fellows. Good job, Jane.
Any relation to Brian Fellow?
I'm Brian Fellows.
You know, I was really into horror. I had a whole few years of my teens where almost all I wanted to do was watch horror movies. Mm-hmm. This is definitely a good break from the slasher films from Friday the 13th parts 1 through a million and etc.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Go watch it. It's on Tubi probably.
Yeah.
Everything's on Tubi.
And you know, this again, it's a little bit creepy, but I think you could sit down and watch it with maybe not very young kids, but with your kids, and they'd be okay with it. You know, it's not going to be a gore fest. It's a good old-fashioned creepy story.
Yeah. Hot Rod, Werewolf, and Busey. What more you need, man?
Come on.
Get on it, buddy.
That's a party.
My number 2, Alien Nation, 1988.
The newcomers have arrived. They have their own customs, their own mysteries.
Slag Town, I hate this place.
And their own crimes.
It did pretty good. I mean, it made a little bit of money. It did okay with the critics. It wasn't like critically acclaimed or universally praised or anything, but overall it was pretty successful. Unfortunately, it's on here because it's mostly been forgotten now, even by a lot of sci-fi fans.
I think if they had taken a little more time with that whole alien society, which really looks fascinating in this film, this would have been a sensational picture. Instead, it's just a good film, but I'm pleased with that. Alienation, thumbs up from me.
It had James Caan and Manny Patinkin as Alien Sam for Francisco. And it starts out a group of aliens of slaves crash landed to Earth, and eventually they kind of integrate themselves into Los Angeles. Kind of like District 9 a little bit, except they're not kept in a camp like they are. By the time the movie starts, they're full functioning members of society. And that's one of the cool things I really like about it, is that a lot of the sci-fi is in the background. You learn cool, interesting things about this race, but just kind of as an aside, like they get drunk on spoiled milk, for example. Yeah. That kind of thing. They like to eat beaver. It's their favorite food. No jokes. Anyway.
Beaver. It's tasty.
It basically becomes a buddy cop drama / there's some comedy in there, like, you know, the mismatched partners is played up for comedy a little bit. But it's a nice allegory for racism and immigration, and it's got a pretty good crime story. It's not The Godfather or, you know, Chinatown or something like that, but it's not bad. I really think this movie is ripe for a reboot. And they did do a television series on it that I actually liked a lot, and that's mostly forgotten now. I think there might have been a couple direct-to-DVD movies or something. I'm not sure. But now some kind of AMC, FX, maybe not Netflix, someplace good could really make something out of this IP, I think, if you rebooted it. So I'm calling it now. Someone do it. Here's the idea for you. Take it.
Yeah.
Margie, what's your number one?
My number one is, or was, until I was old enough to watch Cabaret, my favorite musical of all time. It's still right up there with Cabaret. Cabaret did not overtake it by any means. It just went up there with it. Okay.
Intriguing.
It's Little Shop of Horrors.
Missy Mall.
Little Shop of Horrors, believe it or not, was not a commercial success when it first came out. And, I'm sorry?
Oh, I believe it because I remember not even knowing really it was out until I saw it at the movie store and rented it, I believe, yeah.
And that's where we got our first taste of it, too. We never went to the theater to go see it. So when we went to go see it at the drive-in theater, that was a great thing for me because I'd never seen it in the theater.
Yeah, we got to sit at the drive-in not that long ago. Our local drive-in just kind of showed it, and we were like, we got to go see it. And it was a lot of fun.
It was part of a Halloween double feature, which I thought was really cool. But this movie came out in 1986, so I've broken my 1985 streak. It came out in 1986, and it was a long sort of winding path in getting to the version that I like, the 1986 version, with Rick Moranis, Ellen Greene, Steve Martin, Jim Belushi, John Candy, Bill Murray, Christopher Guest, Levi Stubbs as the voice of the plant. Fantastic. You need to listen to Mean Green Mother, and you'll want to listen to the rest of the soundtrack of this musical. But it came out as a schlock film, basically, 1960. It was written by Roger Corman. It was supposed to be a schlock fest. It was supposed to be, funny, kind of campy movie, and it succeeded in that. 1982, a couple of fellas by the name of Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Alan Menken, sound familiar to you?
From the classic Disney cartoons, I know at least Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, the songwriters, right?
Yes. Alan Menken and Howard Ashman got a hold of this 1960 B movie, and they turned it into an off-Broadway musical in 1982. And then another fella came along a couple years later in 1986, Frank Oz. Does that sound familiar to you?
Wizard of Oz.
No.
The shortstop for the 1980s St. Louis Cardinals.
No, that's Ozzie Smith. No, Frank Oz was a fella that worked with Jim Henson on many projects, including The Muppet Show, including Sesame Street, including The Dark Crystal, which was on our last list of underappreciated movies. You should go watch that video. Frank Oz came along, and he is the one who made it into the 1986 musical that we both rented at a Blockbuster somewhere and watched. If you haven't seen this movie, it is so much fun. So much fun. You're going to love it, even if you don't like musicals. It's just fun. It's campy. It makes fun of itself. There's lots of very fun actors in here who have a blast with their roles. They're camping it up for you. This singing is amazing. We used to have a game, Dan, that was so dumb. It was so dumb. And I know you all played it too. It was called I'm That Person.
Yeah.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah, I'd play it with my cousin watching TV.
Right. We'd do it for TV shows, for movies. We most famously did it with The Price is Right. Price is Right contestants. We'd have almost fistfights over who could be who on that one. But when we played Little Shop of Horrors, because we re-rented it many, many times over, I was always Tisha Campbell, who was Chiffon. Mm-hmm. And she was one of the three ladies in the type of Greek chorus that they have kind of narrating this movie in the background, doing the narrative songs for you. Amazing job. But I was Tisha Campbell. And my siblings tried to take that from me a couple times. I said, no.
Glad you put your foot down.
I know. It's just your basic movie about a strange alien plant coming to Earth and wanting to eat all of humanity. And then, with love in the background.
I remember liking it, but not loving it as a kid. But I've I've grown to love it over the years, watching it with you, introducing it to our daughters, going to the drive-in to see it. You mentioned the cameos. Steve Martin has got one of the funniest parts he's ever played, as far as I'm concerned, in a cameo. It's just hilarious, so it's worth watching it for that alone. So our keen-eyed superfans might know that this video is a week late. And here's the reason. I had a minor stroke last week when I found out that my wife of 50-odd years, who is a co-host of a channel called the Gen-Xers,
I am,
had not seen my #1 movie. I was sure I'd forced it on you at some point. But that's kind of typical. Most people did not see it, but I do consider it the quintessential Gen X movie, and that would be Heathers.
You a Heather?
No. I'm a Veronica.
So we did stop what we were doing and go and watch it. What did you think of your first time seeing Heathers?
Well, I feel as if I'm truly a Gen Xer and not just faking it.
Not just a poser?
Not just a poser anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
I became more Gen Xery with every minute of that movie. And we did literally drop what we were doing and pretty much go watch that movie.
Sure, I literally did think I was going to have a stroke. I could not believe it. That's how I weeded people out back in the day to know if they were cool or not, was whether or not they'd seen Heathers. You must have slipped through because you were hot.
I don't know about all that. But I do know you talked about it being a movie that not everyone saw, and that's true because it wasn't everywhere.
It barely made $1 million.
Yeah, it really was an underappreciated movie and an underseen movie during that decade.
Now there's a musical based on it. Everyone's heard of it. It's considered a classic in the coming of age genre. Back then, it bombed totally. To be honest, I don't even remember where I saw it at or who introduced it to me. I fell in love with it right away. You can literally see the culture shifting from hair metal to grunge as you're watching Heathers. It really does just kind of is a portent of what's to come, the darker, grittier 90s. And this comedy is so black, so dark that we can't even tell you the plot because YouTube will slow our algorithm down at the very least.
You should go watch it. It's very prescient still today, and it is an underrated movie. I had not seen it until now. Don't be ashamed to go see it. Just go watch it like I did.
It would not fly today. Did you think it was shocking?
It was very shocking, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, could not make that film today, I don't think. It stars Gen X slacker icons Winona Ryder and Christian Slater. It is most Jack Nicholson. At the height of his Jack Nicholsonness.
It was one of Jack Nicholson's best roles, I thought.
It really was. And Shannon Doherty, who was great in it. She was kind of uncomfortable making the movie, I think. She had a conservative upbringing, and she did not really love it. She thought it was going to be a serious drama. But I think probably she came to like it over the years. Winona Ryder, on the other hand, first of all, they didn't want her.
They didn't think I was pretty enough. I was sort of the weird girl from Beetlejuice.
And her agent got on her knees and begged her not to take the role. She said, this is going to ruin your career. Please do not take this movie. But she wanted it really badly and got it, and she was perfect for it. But Heathers, you've got to see it, right? Later, turkeys.
Bye, guys.